There are a lot of operators in Rainbow Six Siege that need some changes. Whether it be Blackbeard, Grim, or Azami, I think we can all agree that something needs to be done to these overpowered or underpowered operators. So, in today's video, I'll be giving my ideas for how to rework some of Siege's most problematic operators. Make sure you watch until the end to see the most important rework in my opinion. Now to begin, Jaeger is the first operator I believe needs a rework. He has been at the top of the pick rate charts ever since the game came out pretty much, and that's due to his set it and forget it gadget and his easy to use gun. To help deal with his gadget being so easy to use, I think his ADSs should have 6 shots total. Each ADS would spawn with 1 shot loaded, but after they were burned, they would lose that shot, meaning they would need to be reloaded. This is where my rework could change the way most people play him. Instead of his gadget automatically reloading, Jaeger would have to manually reload his gadget. This means Jaeger would have to actively play on his ADSs to get additional utility out of them. But since he has 6 shots, he would have more potential utility than Wamai. Now, don't get me wrong, this would be a huge nerf to Jaeger, but he would still be strong. Some great examples of some places where Jaeger could get a lot of utility out of his gadget are Bakery on Cafe, Blue on Oregon, and Rafters on Clubhouse. In these power positions, you could still get multiple uses out of his ADSs by reloading them behind the safety of a shield or other cover. And the way I would balance reloading is I would make it instant. All Jaeger has to do is tap a button on his ADS and it instantly reloads, so it wouldn't be a time-consuming process. This would allow him to not risk dying while reloading his ADSs. It just makes him have to tap a button quickly. Now, considering how big the gadget nerf is, I think to help alleviate some of that, I would add a 1.5 to his 416, and I'd give him a deployable shield. The 1.5 would help his gun be a little bit more competitive without buffing the gun's damage, and the deployable shield would mesh really well with his gadget, which is why I'd give it to him. I think this rework would help solve a lot of the main issues with Jaeger, while still allowing him to bring a ton of utility to the team, and still leaving him a lethal force on defense. Following up Jaeger, I want to talk about Tachanka. I know he has already been reworked, but I feel as though some additional changes to him could make him a way more enjoyable operator to play. First off, I recommend adding a toggleable fire mode like what Habana has, that allows him to enable or disable grenade bouncing. This will make it easier to hit shots over walls or other large surfaces, while not sacrificing the benefits of them being able to bounce. What I mean by this is when bouncing is turned off, his fire will immediately explode on impact of any surface. This would make it more like a Capital bolt, where you could shoot it above a wall and it instantly propagate the fire down onto the floor. Whereas if you have grenade bouncing, it would bounce off the roof and then hit the ground going off. And this makes lining up shots a little bit more difficult. Now, on top of this toggleable fire mode, I'd also make his gadget an underbarrel attachment similar to like Buck shotgun. This would make Tachanka's gadget a lot safer, because one of the biggest issues with Tachanka is that while he's using his gadget, he's extremely vulnerable. If this change was implemented, he could still use his gadget from behind cover, but if he notices that the attackers are rushing him or just running through his fire, he can move from the underbarrel to his gun instantaneously and swing someone. Now, in a hypothetical world where these changes went through, he would definitely be a lot more fun to play. But I think to make him a little bit stronger, I would also buff the radius of his fire slightly. Outside of that, I think he would be a perfect operator after that, because he'd have a deployable shield and he'd be a lot more fun to play overall. Now, the next stop I want to talk about is IQ. I think with the current meta we are in, IQ just needs a small change or buff to her gadget, considering how niche she is. I would recommend giving IQ remote EMPs. This would allow IQ to look at gadgets through walls and then disable them. In this hypothetical rework, I would recommend starting her out with 3 of these EMPs, and then if it was deemed too overpowered, you could remove one. This would allow her to bring a lot more utility to her team other than just information, and it wouldn't force her to go below to deal with a lot of gadgets. It would also make her a very hard counter to Kaid, which I think would help make Kaid less overpowered. For the next operator I think deserves a rework, we have Blackbeard. Blackbeard has been a balancing nightmare for Ubisoft over the past couple of years, because when his gadget is good, it is the most infuriating gadget to go against in the game due to it being able to block multiple headshots. But where it is right now, it is basically useless. He either needs a rework to his shield or he needs a brand new gadget altogether. I'm more of a fan of the latter option. My suggested idea is giving him the M203 underbarrel grenade launcher as his gadget. In this hypothetical rework, Blackbeard would have 2 grenades for his launcher. These would literally just be frag grenades, but they would be able to be launched from the underbarrel position, and they would be able to be launched from a much longer range. To help a player line up grenade shots while aiming the grenade launcher, a trajectory would be shown to the user. Also, to help balance out the fact you couldn't cook the grenades in his launcher, they would also have a wider radius, allowing them to be more lethal and to destroy more potential utility. Now, you may be wondering, how would this be better than grenades? And how would Ashe and Zofia be able to even compete with this gadget? Now, to address the first part, the launcher would compete with grenades because of its larger radius. You'd be able to destroy more gadgets and damage more players with one nade from the launcher than a normal grenade ever could. Also, you'd be able to use the launcher from farther away. However, nades would still have the advantage of being able to be cooked, allowing you to, kill people from below. Now, the next part of the rework that a lot of people are going to question is, how is Ashe and Zofia going to compete with this? Well, they're going to compete by being able to destroy soft surfaces. This grenade launcher is not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to open soft walls. You're not going to be able to open castle barricades very easily, because you'd have to be able to get the line up perfectly to destroy them. And it'd also be more difficult to open things like barricades, and you wouldn't be able to open floors with them or hatches. So Zofia and Ashe's gadgets would still be more versatile, because the trade-off now is that the grenade launcher can't destroy soft surfaces, but it can damage players, whereas Ashe and Zofia can't really do that effectively. To go along with this new gadget though, I'd also change some other aspects of his loadout. I'd make him a 3-speed to help him better utilize this new gadget, and I'd buff his scar by giving it a fire rate of 785 instead of 585. All these changes combined would help to make Blackbeard much more fun to play as and against, and it would help him to bring more utility to the team. Overall, I think if Ubisoft did this, he would actually become a really high-picked operator, and I think a lot of people would enjoy him. Following up Blackbeard, I want to discuss my Sins rework concept. For this, I don't want to change their gadget much. All I want to do is add some quality of life changes to make them a little more fun to play. The first is Ubisoft needs to make the hitboxes of their roly-polies a lot smaller. They constantly hit objects that they shouldn't, and it makes using Sins' gadget very infuriating. On top of this, I would remove the ability for defenders to destroy Sins' gadget with explosives. I don't even know why this exists in the first place, but smoke grenades don't suffer from this, so I don't see why Sins needs to suffer from this huge counter. It's just a pointless counterplay to their gadget that doesn't need to exist. Now, their gadget isn't their only issue though. I think another huge issue is in their loadout. I recommend giving Sins flashbangs instead of claymores to help them burn ADSs and stuff, and I'd also buff their POF9's damage to make it on par with other guns in Siege. If all these changes came, I think Sins would be in a much better position, and they'd actually be very good for securing a plan. After Sins, I'm sure you guys won't be surprised to see Grim. His gadget is extremely underpowered, which is why Ubisoft is currently reworking it, but with what they have released so far, I don't think it's enough. So I suggest changing how his bees function. The change I suggest is implementing a swarm system for his bees. This will make it to where when the bees are deployed and a defender walks into their radii, the bees will follow the defender until they're swatted away. When swatting the bees away, the defender will have to put their gun away and swat at the bees for 3 seconds. If the defender doesn't do this, they will be constantly pinged, their vision will be obscured, and they will begin to take damage after 10 seconds of the swarm staying on them. Also, if they walk within close proximity of another defender, the bees will begin swarming them as well. This rework to the functionality of his bees will allow them to be much more effective at crowd control, and it would allow for his bees to actually be feared by the defender. Moving on from Grim, we have one of the most overpowered defenders, Solace. Solace is an extremely strong defender due to her ability to see so much intel from a distance without any risk. She is an IQ, but on steroids. My solution is to nerf her gadget. To do this, Ubisoft needs to do one of two things. They need to nerf the range of her gadget, or they need to add some sort of downside to her gadget. For the sake of entertainment, I'm going to go with the less boring option, which is adding a downside to her gadget. My suggested way of doing this is making her reveal herself to drones while her gadget is active. Basically, drones will be able to see her through walls as if they were IQ looking at Solace. This wouldn't logically make sense, but it would add a trade-off to using her gadget through soft surfaces because the attackers would be able to see it. To go along with this change, I'd make her a 3-speed to make her have an easier time with her roaming job, and it would also allow her to move between areas after being spotted by the attackers. If Ubisoft went through with both of these, it would make her a lot more interesting of an operator to play because now there's a trade-off to actually activating your gadget. For the final operator, we have Azami. Azami is the most problematic operator in this game right now. She can use her gadget in the middle of a round to slow attackers and fill holes, while also being able to preemptively place them to protect power positions. My solution is to incentivize players to use them during the prep phase instead of using them throughout the round. The reason I want to do this is because while being able to react with her gadget to the attackers throughout the round can make her more fun to play, it makes it a lot more infuriating for the attackers to go against, and it makes her extremely strong. I would do this by removing 2 of her Kibas, nerfing their radii, and giving her all 3 of them at the start of the round. This would make Azami players more likely to use her Kibas in the prep phase to set up a power position, or to cut off the attacker line of sight, instead of using them throughout the round. Also, the smaller radii of Rakibas would make it much more difficult to use them reactively to fill doorways or breaches. Overall, I hope this change, or something like it, comes to Azami in the near future, because without it, Azami may continue to be a nightmare for attackers. I'm not really dead set on how to fix it, I just think this would be one of the potential ways to do it. Anyways, that about wraps up all my operator rework concepts for today. As always, this video is strictly my opinion, and if you would have rather seen other operators, feel free to leave your ideas in the comments down below. Anything to potentially spark some ideas from Ubisoft is a good thing. If you enjoyed today's video, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. If you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now where I talk about some of the controversial takes held by content creators in Rainbow Six Siege. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.